COVA stands for Choice, Ownership, Voice, and Authentic, and it's a student-centered learning approach as opposed to a teacher-centered learning approach. COVA gives the student or the learner a choice in their learning, which leads to them feeling like they have more ownership over their learning. And then they get more excited about it. They feel like it's their baby, which then leads to them having more voice. They want to share it with others. And that is all done in a context of an authentic learning environment, which makes them feel like their learning is more relevant and more authentic, more practical to their everyday life. I first realized I had choice in my learning through the DLL program very early on. It was probably my very first course, and it was uncomfortable at first, but I did realize that they were giving us a lot of choice in our learning. As far as ownership and voice and realizing the authenticity of the learning itself, that came later. The ownership, I think, probably came in after several courses, and then the voice was a little bit after that, maybe a little longer than a little after that. And I did realize the practicality of it, that it was something that we could bring to our actual classrooms and use in the class. That was, I would say, a little more than halfway through. The choice, I realized right away that they weren't just spoon feeding me, telling me what they wanted me to do. They gave us a lot of choice and freedom in that area, and that was a little uncomfortable. The rest of it came a little bit later. My initial reaction when I discovered that the professor my first course was giving us choice in our learning, my first reaction was, like I said, I was uncomfortable with that. I was not prepared for that. I was totally expecting for there to be very strict, stringent guidelines as to what they expected of us. And there were guidelines, but it was not set in stone. And there was a lot of choice over the formatting. Different aspects of the learning was really up to us. And that took a lot of getting used to. It was uncomfortable at first. I wanted almost to be told what to do. It was a little bit out of my comfort zone. I would say it took me a few courses before I started to get fairly comfortable with that. I think I just embraced it. I think that some of the professors made it, they really stressed that we should embrace this and enjoy the process and make it our own. And they really encouraged us to do the things that we enjoy doing in our learning. And I think once I started to do that, it shifted. Everything shifted for me, and I really just enjoyed the creativity of it. I'm a very creative person, and that just knowing that I could choose different types of formatting for certain projects, I dug right into that, and I really, really, really enjoyed the process a lot more after I just embraced it and went with it. Taking control of my own voice was not very difficult, honestly. Once I got excited about my learning and the fact that I really started to see that I had the potential to make a difference in my students' learning, it became pretty easy for me to want to share that with my co-teachers, my content specialist, my appraiser, my assistant principal. Once I got excited knowing that I really had the potential to make a difference, it became pretty easy for me to want to share that with others in my organization. My attitude towards leading change in my organization, I think, has definitely shifted as the program has progressed. I have felt much more confident and in my innovation project, and the fact that it really is possible to make a difference. And I think just knowing that, really believing in what you're sharing with others, I think that makes all the difference. If I did not believe in my innovation project or in my ability to make a difference in the learning of others, I don't think that it would be nearly as easy for me to feel confident in leading change in anywhere. My innovation plan is very authentic. However, it was just to get through a course at the beginning, but it was still authentic. I'm not sure I would have done it had it not been prompted by a course, but it is still authentic. Now, having said that, it has shifted quite a bit, so that the impact of it is greater than what it initially was. Initially, the scope of the project, as far as an overall learning style or learning approach goes, it has definitely expanded in that aspect, but it was authentic, and it remains pretty authentic. The COVA approach really aligns quite a bit with my personal learning philosophy, which is mostly humanist, 21st century, with some constructivist in there as well. Humanist is very student-oriented, student-centered, which is exactly what COVA is about. It's about giving those kids choice, ownership, and voice through authentic learning environments, and that is exactly in line with my personal learning philosophy. The 21st century part of it is exactly my innovation project includes bringing e-portfolios into the classroom so that students can reflect on their learning assignments and connect their learning. The e-portfolio aspect of it is definitely 21st century learning. The COVA approach very much aligns with my personal learning philosophy. When I went to school, it was very teacher-oriented, teacher-centered learning. The teacher just stood up at the front of the class, we took notes, we memorized a lot, and then we regurgitated that when it came time to take a test. Looking back, I don't think a whole lot of that stuck after I graduated from high school. When I first started teaching, I still believed that was the best way to teach, and that was probably the best way for students to learn. Memorization was just a big part of what I thought was important. That has definitely changed through the course of the DLL program. I have now realized, by doing some introspection and looking at how I really did learn best after I left high school, I see that that's not at all what really drove me to learn in certain parts of my life where I continued to learn different things, such as knitting or laying tile or cooking a certain meal. What drove me to really learn those things later was a strong desire to want to know how to do those things, which was not at all why I learned things back in high school. And so in doing some research into my own learning style, my own learning philosophy, I now realize that is not what drives people to learn, just memorizing and wanting to make an A in a class. What really drives our students to learn is them really, really wanting to know something, and that's only going to come through them feeling like they have a choice and voice in their learning, which then makes them feel that they own it. I absolutely will use COVA to create significant learning environments for my students, because I already am. I have slowly integrated more choice, and which has led to my students feeling more ownership in their learning, which has then led to them having more of a voice. I've definitely been looking for more ways to bring more authentic learning into the classroom. It's a little bit difficult sometimes to bring in more authentic physics and chemistry lessons, but I've really looked for ways to do that. I still haven't reached my ultimate goal, which is to be able to teach my students about science through growing a vegetable garden, which I think we can really bring a lot of physics lessons and chemistry lessons through doing an authentic project like that. I have started bringing in more project-based learning into the students, and then allowing them time to reflect and connect the dots between their projects and maybe what some of the concepts are that we're trying to teach them. But yes, I absolutely am a big proponent of the COVA approach, and have already started to use that in my classroom. One of my goals in my classroom is to actually move the classroom outside and have my students participate in building raised bed gardens and growing vegetables. And I can start bringing in some of the concepts of energy and how energy is transformed, and all different types of science lessons that can be part of that. Everything from force and Newton's laws to energy transformations and chemistry. There's all kinds of things, and how I will plan to give my students more choice and voice in that is while I do have to have some confines and some parameters to the project, I will allow them to choose what part of that project they want to participate in. Do they actually want to plant some vegetables, and if so, what do they want to plant, or flowers? Do they not, are they not interested in that aspect of it? Would they be more interested in maybe building the vegetable, the bed itself, the construction of the bed? Maybe they're not interested in any of that. Maybe they're more interested in helping collect data or record data, or there's all different aspects of that project that they can be a part of. So I feel like by allowing them to find something that interests them in that project, I think that will definitely make them feel more ownership in it, and therefore more voice. The biggest challenge I have found in the COVA approach and the creating significant learning environments approach is getting around the standards-based testing. I just feel that really confines the limits that what the real choice in their learning is, because the standardized based learning, it really puts specific content that they must know. They must be able to demonstrate learning of all types of concepts that are quite abstract, and it's very difficult to take the authentic learning that they're doing and tie that in with those abstract concepts. That's the real challenge for a teacher, is to be able to help them connect those dots between their authentic learning project or assignment and how that ties in with what they're going to need to know on a STAR test or even a district assessment of some sort. That seems to really be a limiting factor for me. I'm not saying it can't be done, but it is a challenge for me at this point. I hope that becomes a little easier in the future. Overall, overall, the COVA approach has really changed me as a teacher. Student-based learning is the way to go. You want them to be excited about their learning, and the only way to do that is by giving them that choice, letting them feel that they own their learning experiences, and that when they're excited, they're going to share that with others. And I honestly believe that by allowing them to learn these in authentic learning environments, that is the best way for them to feel that their learning is relevant to them, and that just feeds into more of that excitement and that voice. But yeah, it has really changed me as a teacher in a good way.